If you remember, last night I was talking about Dave, and this is him, and I don't know, this is some random dude over here. And this gentleman actually kind of grew up in the game store that Dave had started, and remember that I was the one who ended up sort of taking over, right? And when he moved back, or he moved into the next town over to us, and he started his own card store. And well, when we were talking about seeing what we could do in order to become this very powerful central entity, we all went to an Italian, like a local Italian restaurant, as a bunch of good fellas here, as we were discussing what we wanted to do with our businesses and how it might work out. And it worked out for Dave and myself. Although our third here, he didn't end up joining into what it was that we were doing, and so he had his own place for a while, and then he ended up closing his store. I'm not saying that out of any offense to him or anything. He had to make sure he was taking care of his family, and that he was spending time with them, and that he was making sure he could provide for them, and so all of this sort of happens, and he could do so knowing that there was still a place that people could travel to relatively nearby to purchase singles and to buy packs and to play and have all of this going on. So yeah, so I was browsing through things and just how how far we had come along before coming live here. So memories, and they still continue. All right. Well, anyway, so hello, Daly. Although I think Daly is muted in his game that he's playing tonight. So good luck to you, Daly. And TJ, you're here. So I will be popping over into our audio stream, or our VIP room, so that you and I could talk. And if you have any sort of links that you would like me to open up, make sure to let me know. Otherwise, I'll just keep open the shop as a background to, if we talk about product or displays or something like that, I can bring up a reference of some kind, at least off of my own shop here. So, all right, let me pop over and do this. Okay, nope, that's fine. Okay, I should be voice connected. Can you hear me?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hey, how are we going?
It is going well, and you know what? I very much appreciate you taking some time to, kind of impromptu, volunteer to come and be the capstone discussion of our week.
Oh, thank you very much. Wonderful to be here. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Yeah, thank you. Well, actually, it's about, it's Sunday afternoon for you right now, isn't it?
It's about, hang on, let me look at the time. It is just on 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh, 3 in the afternoon. All right, it is 11:50 p.m. here. So,
Oh dear.
yeah, we're speaking through time and space. And by the way, you sound very crisp and clear for being halfway around the world. And I say that like I'm not halfway around the world from you.
Wonderful, wonderful. I had a bit of spot of bother this morning. I woke up and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm doing this thing with Maddie tomorrow. Maddie today. Hang on, I don't have a microphone. So I'm currently on my phone using my phone headset in order to talk. So.
Oh, it sounds. Hey, then whoever made your headphone, give them at least 3 stars, if not 4, because it sounds really good.
The ones that come with the Samsungs, the AKGs. That's pretty good.
Okay. I use Samsung products myself, so I agree. Oh, hey, Dark Wolf, welcome. A woo to you.
Hey, Wolf. No woe.
Let's start at the beginning, because that's a really good place to start. Unless you're Quentin Tarantino and you kind of want to have a media and res here.
No.
Oh, you want to Tarantino this? You want to give us the explosive action and then?
my first name sounds a lot like Tarantino. Oh, not Tarantino. It sounds a bit like Quentin. So
Oh, okay.
you can do that, but no.
You open your story with like, and that's how I was told to never come back here again. Now let me take you back a couple years.
Record scratch. So
Yeah.
this is me. You're probably wondering how I got here.
Yeah. Hey. Exactly.
All right. So where do you want to start?
All right. Well, introduce yourself, and the topic this week has been owning or working in a game store or a comic store, and your experiences, highs and lows and all that. So, why don't you give an introduction to us and tell us how your life intersected this industry?
So I never really got into card games or board games until it was after I finished high school. I was very much a computer game, video game kind of nerd. I did appreciate like comic books, but I'd never played a card game or board game of like what do you expect from a business such as your own. And then one year, a friend of mine said, "Hey, why don't we go to PAX?" Because it was the very first PAX being held in Australia.
Okay.
So all right, let's go along. And whilst I was there, I kind of fell in love with Magic the Gathering. Picked up a pack of cards, fell in love immediately, just loved the logic behind the game and how well it would play out, and despite the fact you can play the exact same deck 20 times, you're not going to get the exact same game 20 times.
And for those, real quick, I'm sorry, for those who don't know what PAX is, that's Penny Arcade Expo.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's fine. I want to make sure, because, hey, we're a bunch of nerds here, and almost everyone here may know, but there could be that one person who says, PAX, is that an Australian thing, or is that, what is that? So it's a gaming convention.
Australia.
Okay.
Very first Penny Arcade Expo Australia that we went to. Bought some Magic Gathering stuff. Then when I came back home, I decided to track down what my nearest game store was, and the closest thing I could find was 15 minutes away in the middle of town. So roll up one night. Had no idea where the store it was exactly. Mum and Dad dropped me off. They've gone off to have dinner. I don't know where I am. Oh no, what's going on? Walk upstairs. Eventually find the place. Walk upstairs. Find a lovely couple people behind the counter. They help me out. Rah rah rah. Flash forward to would have been February of 2016, I believe it was.
Okay.
The store got a new manager after moving location. Same block, but just different room in the block.
Okay.
New manager. We started talking, became good friends, and then disaster struck. There was a fire in the cafe downstairs.
Oh no.
From the store, and the store got completely destroyed with smoke damage. We lost something like 50 grand in product, and this was the day before we were meant to have a really big. It was meant to be a really big Magic Gathering tournament in town. We're gone. Oh no, what are we going to do? The entire community's got in behind us and got the store back up and running for the next day. But April, Magic taps me on the shoulder and says, "Hey, we're currently looking for somebody to hire. Would you be interested in trying out?" And yes, please. This is a great store. I love it here. The community's great. Where do I sign up? So I had a few training shifts and eventually got into it. My very first shift that I got left alone, I had 70 sales, I think it was. It was meant to be a Monday day, normally the quietest day of the week, bang, 70 sales. What the hell's going on? I can't deal with this. I'm freaking out a bit. Manager walks in, store owner walks in, sees me with all these customers. At the end of the shift, manager pulls me aside. "Dude, you did a great job." "Well, what are you talking about?" "Yeah, you did a great job." Oh, cheers, thanks. Then a few months later, the manager pulls me inside and says, "Hey, look, there's going to be a change in ownership." The previous owner was just getting way too busy, inundated with her life and everything else. And it's like, all right, the new owner's going to come in a few minutes. Once you're looking all good and spick and span, whatever.
Right.
Comes the new owner, and it's a guy that had a deal with the old owner to sell Magic the Gathering cards through that store. Bit of a profit sharing situation. Guy comes in, introduces himself. he's a nice enough guy, and we had a bit of chat. And it would have been about July. The store that got burnt down, or that got smoked out, it's fixed. We're moving back in. In the space of 8 hours, we moved an entire game store about 100 meters up and down 3 or 4 flights of stairs or something.
July of 2016?
No, 2017. July 2017.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, July 2017. Going, yeah. I think I got my timeline twisted, but whatever. So we smash out. We put in brand new counters, new cabinets, new tables. Like I said, we moved an entire game store in a day. Up less than a day. What do you mean? Yeah.
And it wasn't just the staff. You had community members, like the Magic players and other customers who came to help.
Yeah, a lot of Magic players came in. I think in all up we had about 20 people helping out.
Oh, wow.
That night, the new owner's gone, all right, everybody that helped out gets 30% off Magic cards. Yeah! Wow. Big chair goes up, and I'm like, yeah, all right. Sold absolutely no Magic cards that night.
Oh. Did y'all at least buy him a pizza or something?
Oh, yeah, we chipped in and got a couple pizzas and pizzas and stuff called Nando's. It's like Portuguese chicken.
Oh, I can't say I've had that, but I like being...
It's an Australian thing, as far as I can tell.
They're called Nanos?
Nando's.
Nando's.
Nandos.
Nando's, okay.
Yeah. And then, would have been about October. I had to go on prac for university.
Mm.
I'm about to graduate and become a high school teacher, and as part of that, you have to take, depending on what time of your degree you're in, you have to go out into a school for X amount of days, and the university highly recommends during that time that you don't work, because you need to be focusing on your education.
Yeah. Despite
the fact that you're doing 40 days or 20 days or something of unpaid work where you have to pay all your own costs with no chance of reimbursement. So I know several people that have spent upwards of $1,000 just trying to survive that couple of days.
Yeah, that's
at the end of that time.
That's a heck of a gear change.
At the end of the prac, I look at my roster and I'm not on it. I'm like, oh, what's going on here? Eventually, about 2 months later, so it would have been mid-December, my manager pulls me aside and says, hey, here's what's going on. So you're going to have some shifts coming up, but it's not all good news for you. Oh, what's going on? So the store owner decided that he was going to fire me without telling me anything. He was going to do it. I'm like, what do you mean? What's going on? Leading up into the days before prac, apparently I'd gotten very, very short with customers and was being somewhat unpleasant. Their words, not mine. With customers and just being generally rude and just going, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, on reflection, I was getting a little bit snippy with people, but genuinely they were being just idiots and very, very rude towards me first. Being a little bit unprofessional, but that was due to stress. Get back into work, and then in January of this year, my boss turned around to me again and says, hey, look, I understand that you've got prac coming up for the rest of the year. We currently don't have enough shifts going at the moment. I need your keys and your shirt back. Oh, all right. So after working for him for about a year, turns around and says, no, sorry, mate. There's just not enough shifts going for you. And after that, I was a bit disappointed. He's kept in contact with me and occasionally give me a fill shift here or there. And it was about March. One of the guys that works there goes, hey, I need somebody to cover for me. I stick my hand up. I roll up to the shift the next day, find out it's been covered already. And I'm like, all right, no. I decided I'm not going to have anything to do with the store anymore. I walk out. About
Yeah.
3 weeks later, I walked back in because I like the manager too much. I like everybody too much. And I was just being a bit salty at the time. But that's basically my story. Still love the store, still go there. Still recommend it. Just a bit of a sour note to leave.
I understand, and you know what? TJ? I think you are bringing another aspect that we haven't explored in our conversations this week, because, we would bring up, what's a sour note, what's a bad customer experience, but, with what you're talking about here, you're bringing another light into this, which is, if you're a manager, you might have to look at not just hiring people and hoping they're going to stay on forever, like Ali has been with Sir Games a lot, or when CJ came aboard. I occasionally we'd have to have some conversations, but he's never done anything that would put him at risk, or that I would do something to put him at risk because of my poor decisions. And so now you're bringing your story here, and I think that is an aspect that that you need to realize if you're out there watching this and you want to be involved in this business, is you are replaceable. You can be fired, and it can be your fault, or if it's a service industry, a retail / service, and you go by at least a similar sentiment to the customer's always right. Customer is going to tell your boss, hey, TJ, I don't know, he cussed at me. Now, I don't know what you have to say in Australia to be considered like cussing at someone. I say that tongue in cheek.
Yeah, it's very much tongue in cheek. I think it was, if I had to put it back to a point or something that would have happened, it would have been, I'm on the phone talking to people who are trying to sign up for an event. I'm signing people up for an event, and somebody's come over to me and asked me just a stupid question. And I've just gone, look, mate, I can't deal with you right now. I've got to focus on this at the moment. So, a little bit of unprofessionality, but at the same time, when my boss was going to fire me without telling me why.
Yeah, that's...
When I can understand being fired for being impolite or rude or unprofessional, but being fired and not being told why, because when I came back to work, I went massively out of my way to improve my customer service.
But how would you know where to strengthen if you weren't told what the weakness was?
So I came back, and shortly before, when he had the conversation with me, it was very much a, look, mate, I'm really sorry about this, but this is what's going on. We just don't have enough people. Because what had happened is when I started, there was the manager, myself, and one other guy. So there was 3 of us working. When I left, there was myself, the manager, 1, 2, 3, 4. So there was about 6 people working. So the manager was guaranteed hours because he was full-time contract. That was myself and one other who were at university studying. I was studying education. He was studying business accounting. Okay. And there was 3 other people that were. This was the only thing that they were doing. This was and it was sort of like a look. I understand that this is going to be tough for you. You haven't done anything wrong. This is just the facts here. We don't have enough shifts going. We've had a bit of a downturn after Christmas, as we always do. I'm going to have to let you go because you're one of the few people that are currently on staff that actually has a future. His words, not mine. I'm like, oh. It still stung. Yeah. I'm still a little bit salty about it every time I talk about it, but I've sort of moved on, and I think it's been for the better for me because I was really able to focus on my studies and I was able to bring my GPA up, which is a big thing for me. So it sucks not having the money, but I've kept in really good terms with everybody that was working there. I've gotten back into good terms. That's the wrong way to word that. My view of the owners changed, and it's certainly improved. Okay. From being like, how dare he to, all right, now I can actually understand this.
So the bridge wasn't burnt wasn't burnt behind you, or rather they didn't burn the bridge per se, but there was certainly a distance or a gap between you. But now it seems to be closing back up.
The bridge was put under quarantine, shall we say?
Oh, okay. It existed, but no one should cross it. All right.
Yeah, and eventually we've come back to like pretty good terms. We're not talking like I'm not calling him up and going, "Hey, how you going?" But I recently told him that I got a brand new job, and he's said congratulations, and he's given me a tap on the shoulder to say, "Hey, we might have some Christmas work. Would you be interested?" So.
Yeah, and if you engage with that, who knows where that might end up leading to. I mean, obviously, you went to school for a particular trade. In this case, it's education. And I can very much I appreciate that, and I can at least partially sympathize. As I was an adjunct professor for economics here locally, and that is it's an interesting experience when you're working in education.
It definitely is.
You're caught between many gears that none of them are meant to really stop from kind of catching you and squishing you between them, and so it's a good way to learn if you have what it takes to navigate the teeth there with all the levels of administration and such.
Well, in the space of 30 minutes, you can go from being teacher to dad to therapist to counselor to lawmaker.
I mean, in its own way, you were probably even doing that behind the counter at the game store you're working at, where you'd have to come over and give a ruling on a card interaction, or you'd have to prevent or break up a fight, or people would come up to you with a problem. It could be personal, like oh, I really like this guy or girl, and it has me all mopey, or they ask you, well, what do I do, or something along those lines.
Yeah, we were very lucky with our store. We always had at least the community where I live is very strong with Magic players, and we were always lucky to have at least one level 1 judge in the store. Okay. We often would have a couple level 2s. So on an F&M, if there was a judge calling, because A, it was standard, so it's pretty easy to work out, and B, if there was a more complicated ruling that was required, we could just usually turn around and go, "Hey, how does this work?" Which was quite nice. And for fights, I was very lucky. I never really had to deal with any physical altercations. Although, speaking to a couple of guys that work there at the moment, they recently had a bit of trouble with a couple of players in the community who have been banned from the store. One player's actually been what's referred to as DCI banned, which means they can no longer play Magic at a competition level. That's due to Facebook. So, but no. Any more questions?
Yeah, you know what? In telling your story, I was making some mental bookmarks here that hopefully I don't trip over myself and spill them all around. I want to go back to the point that your boss told you, where he said that he was letting you go because you have a future and that the others might not or don't, or how it was worded. Because to a lot of people, that could sound very shocking. I mean, you're the subject of it. But if you break it down, what does that mean? It sounds really insensitive. But if you have a career prospect, and running the game store, even on a managerial level, it requires some basic accounting and some other things, but it's you don't need a college degree necessarily to do it. There are other people who are probably depending on that because that is the only thing that they can do, while you're moving into hopefully something beyond.
So the store owner is very numbers orientated. Even before he was running the store took over the store, he was buying and selling Yu-Gi-Oh cards, buying and selling Magic cards. He'd already had a fairly successful engineering career. He's only a couple of years older than I am, but he'd already had just that taste of success, and he knew what he needed to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
What he was saying was, so there was myself and one other guy who were studying something, and then there were three other people that weren't the manager who they weren't studying anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
One guy had left high school in grade 9. The only girl on staff she was good, but she had her own few quirks. And the third guy, he come in from a store that had recently closed down to be our Yu-Gi-Oh expert because we didn't have one at the time.
Okay.
And the other guy that was studying was living out of home with his wife, whereas I was living with my parents.
Mm-hmm.
So I had that like fallback. So he could have fired anyone, but he chose me because I had that economic security with my parents, and I was wow, that sounds really bad, but I was going somewhere immediately. Like
in the context of our story, you are correct, and it may sound cruel, but in the context we're framing this, it is absolutely logical, and I think we can understand why your manager or your boss at the time made the decision the way that he did. And this is also serving as a good lesson, because if anyone out there, hears that and kind of feels like, oh, that kind of puts me in a like a nervous bind to hear that presented. Well, if you are in a position of ownership or management, and you have to let someone go, how do you rationalize it? How do you balance it out? How do you, and of course, we're hoping that everything is within the within the boundaries of hiring law, like business law, or
it was.
And so then it comes down to you have to measure. It's like you're a parent to 3 kids, and you gotta choose which one you say I love you to, because you can't to the others. And how do you do that? Except, I don't know. I guess you cried 3 less times when you were a baby than the others, and so I guess that's the tiebreaker.
Yeah. Well, like, I definitely mean no ill will to anybody there. They're lovely people. It was just like, it was very much a business thing, and it was also a case of, because I was working, it meant that the guys who really needed the work couldn't. So,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would also offer this, and maybe you with your managerial experience can back this up. But when I considered people in my store who wanted to help or maybe sort some cards or volunteer or do something along those lines, the people that I had step up and help in those ways. I mean, one-time events like the guys and girls getting together helping you move the store. That's a whole that's another sort of psychology. But the people that you want, to have working for you in some capacity are those who have something to lose if they were to have that access removed from them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
If someone comes in and they have nothing to lose by either working for you directly, or they want to come in and they're willing to sit down, sort some Yu-Gi-Oh cards for like a candy bar and a drink, and maybe like a pack of their choice off your wall or something, like a casual, an ad hoc kind of a thing. Those who have this passion and want to be at your store and have something to lose are, you can tend to trust them to get the job accomplished more than people who don't have something to lose. And that might have been partially the psychology that your boss was facing at the time, because he probably thought, well, here's TJ, he's almost ready to graduate. He has this, guaranteed, being a teacher is all but a guaranteed job, I'd imagine, unless you really go out of your way to mess it up. You'll be teaching. And so you have this guaranteed employment, and eventually, because we were talking about this on the side earlier, you'll be able to move where you want after you put in, X amount of years in another place. And so you had this solid future, but if your skill set is Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and I'm not disparaging anyone who plays or judges or works in a game store in that capacity, but your job your job prospects are much more limited if you were to lose that job, because people will hire a teacher for all manner of positions than a Yu-Gi-Oh judge. And so keeping a Yu-Gi-Oh player in the store above someone who's also a teacher, if everything else being the same, that's where the break could come, or that's what you'd have to consider. And I'm not saying you as in you, TJ. You is a wonderful word in our English language because it means everything and nothing. It is singular. It is plural. It is the mega. It's linguistic putty. We can use it as we wish. Oh, hey, Daly. The maps and dice arrived today. Yeah, you're very welcome. And Daly, I hope to have some special edition covers shipping out to you here as soon as possible as well. And I will notify you when that is going out, so you'll have some very pretty books. But I am glad that you did get your other items. I took a look at the maps, and they're really, really good. And I hope the dice roll well for you. But hey, welcome back, Daly. And so that's we've spent a lot of time talking about this actual downturn in your employment, in your association with the store, but I think this is a very real lesson that we can all walk away, in decision making, and also if it comes down to I'm a boss and I do have to let someone go, and no one else, even under pressure, under understandable pressure, snapped at a customer, and even if the customer was being just head up their own butt, just absolutely asinine as a human being, you made the one mistake. And if everything else being even, so those are things to consider if you are in that position of managing someone else, or you have to let someone go, or if there's any sort of I don't want to say altercation like a fist fight, but if employees disagree with each other, and so it's not even amongst the crowd that comes into the store, but it is you, TJ, would have an opinion on a product, and you say, no, we have to get 10 boxes of whatever, and another employee, the girl that was working there says, no, we only need 7. What are you talking about, 10? And it comes down to, no, we really need 10. And she says, no, we really need 7. And now we're just, butting heads. How do you resolve that then as the overarching boss? And what do you do? And how do you handle this interpersonal conflict? Because as a small business, even 6 employees, that's small business for sure, let alone if it was just 1 or 2. You don't have a human resources department. I presume. I mean, there's ways you could outsource human resourcing.
The store owner, his girlfriend, fiance, sort of act as HR, and
okay.
Whenever the boss called, it's like, all right. Whenever getting a shift, whenever she called, it's like, all right, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you don't want to mess with HR. They'll bring the hammer down.
I get a funny phone call. I was working at a local show for families selling various meats and salamis that they make. Get a phone call from HR, and it's like, yes, ma'am, how can I help? Yeah, I'll get you 2 salamis, garlic and red wine. Is that okay? And a hot pepperoni. All right. It's just a bizarre phone call. It's like, what?
It's kind of like a little kid playing between mom and dad to get the best deal on dessert after dinner or something, or to or if you can go outside and play, and mom says no, and so you go and you try and talk to dad, and dad's like, yeah, go and play, I don't care, scrape your knees up, it'll be good for you. You got to get those germs in you to build a resistance.
Those allergies.
Exactly. And you know what? As a boss, I don't know if that happened on your watch at all, or if you were a part of that, but to have employees or even not employees, people who would help move the store, or unfortunately I didn't have this when we were moving the physical location of of my store from its downtown location to where it is. But when we were bringing up all the furniture, I had a picture of this up last night. All the cardboard boxes, the furniture, we're packing stuff up, we're getting things sorted. Everyone was unified there, but if you are around the same people often, it's natural, especially in a competitive environment, to have that kind of jockeying, that kind of, hey, notice me, and oh look, I ran this tournament and I have, I had 14 people last week and I have 16 people this week, and according to my projections, I'm going to be getting 20 people next week, and so you do have to be an arbiter, or you have to make sure that you're having meaningful interaction without seeming, what's the word I want to use here? You're just not coddling, like you're just giving them a head pat. You're patronizing them. You're like, oh yeah, very good. So, 16 people for Magic.
Those 2 extra people that came in, you had nothing to do with it, but because you had 2 people come in on your watch, very good job.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, oh God, I can remember one of my earlier shifts. So my very first shift I had by myself had 70 people come in. At the same time next week, I'm all prepared. I think it's going to go completely gangbusters. The store closes at 11 p.m. My last customer was 7 p.m.
Oh.
My parents are dropping off my dinner.
Oof. as the kids on the internet say these days, oof.
Oof. Yeah. That was a bit of a weird one because store owner's gone. So it looked like last week was a complete and utter anomaly, and I'm like, yep. So very next week we closed at 8 o'clock on a Monday night for a good couple months, and then when we moved back into the proper location, we opened up again on Monday and started offering Pauper, Magic Gathering Pauper, only commons. You can only use commons.
Yeah.
As well as Super Smash Bros. 4. We had so. Quick side note: the store itself does not have any consoles, any screens, anything like that.
Okay.
We've got I live in Brisbane, Australia. In Brisbane, we've got a couple of very strong communities around a lot of games.
Okay.
And Smash Bros is one of those where they'll, all right, guys, we're hosting a Smash Bros tournament. It's 6 hours away. You'll have at least 20 people show up with 2 TVs, a couple of Wii's, and everything ready to go. Just, yeah. Same with Magic. Although with Magic, it's a bit easier to organize something because you don't need PowerPoints.
Mobilizing a community, if you're tapping into it and you give people the chance to step up and shine, which is what a lot of us really are looking for in employment, in education, just in our lives, to get that recognition. As much as I'm saying, people are competing for it, and you have to hand out your head pats very carefully. That's what we seek, is advancement. We seek recognition. We seek to gain experiences, especially, and maybe you all talk about this in Australia as well. The economy in a developed nation in today's day and age is that of YOLO and FOMO. It is you only live once and fear of missing out. It isn't necessarily about just the product. We can get things. Our generation, if you're computer savvy, you can get things, whatever you want, wherever you want. I could go online right now and get an authentic Aboriginal didgeridoo and have it overnighted to my front doorstep in Ohio. I could place the order on a Sunday, and it'd show up the next day, or maybe 2 days if I'm if I want to be slow about it. And yet it looked 50 years ago. If someone would have to probably go there or otherwise place an order in some esoteric catalog, and it would take weeks or a month to ship over and all this other stuff. And yet here I can get a thing. Now I know that when we're talking about stuff, there are cultural associations. So I'm going for, I want to tell a story where I can get something seemingly rare, exotic, or very localized shipped halfway across the world to my front doorstep. So things don't necessarily mean as much as the experiences that are shared. And it sounds like the store you were working for was able to tap into that, especially with that single day move from your old smoked out building to the next one.
Oh no, we're moving from the old. It's really weird because the store is in a block with the old store as well. So we went from the smoked out place back into the old store, whilst the smoked out place was getting fixed, and in a day we went from the old place back into the smoked out place.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Although the store owner's still a little bit salty because it was in an upstairs area, and the cafe next door that smoked out had this upstairs area, and he'd been pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing to get this upstairs area, and he did end up getting it. And there's a cafe that's about to go in downstairs, and they're not going to be using the upstairs area, but he can't get the upstairs area for whatever reason.
And so it's still empty?
So it's still empty, and by the looks of it, it's going to be sealed off. There's about, I'd say, like 80 to 100 square meters, which is about, rough estimate is about 1,000 square feet of just unused space. It's about to be sealed up, so.
Wow. And is the place that's next door then? Is that in a sort of a symbiotic relationship to the game store, where a lot of people will go to this cafe and get food and drink, and then come over to the game store, or did the game store offer food and drink as well?
No. So the cafe downstairs ran very different hours to the store. So the cafe downstairs was 6 a.m. till 2 p.m., whereas the game store was 11 a.m. till 11 p.m.
Oh, okay.
So there was a little bit of overlap, and when we did run like major events on a Saturday or a Sunday, the cafe downstairs would do reasonably well out of us, but not too fantastical. The store itself has a few ice creams, drinks fridge, and like a shelf of snacks.
Okay.
But they try and keep as much food out of the store because they've just got like brand new table runners and all this sort of stuff. So they want to keep it as clean as possible for as long as possible.
That's you brought up another good point here that we hadn't addressed yet in this week. Allie was talking about location, and of course, you know, the three most important parts of your business are location, location, and location. But your hours of operation are also very important, because that is going to depend on the crowd that you want to attract, or, you know, that is attracted to the product that you're selling. You know, yours was 11 to 11, so it was a solid, you know, a 12-hour block. Mine, I would open at 3 p.m., and we would go until 9 or 10, you know, at 9 and until Thursday, and then Friday and Saturday was 10 p.m. And, you know, can you hazard a guess as to why we opened at 3 p.m.?
High school kids?
School gets out, exactly. School gets out, I mean, depending on the school, or, you know, how long it takes for kids to go, it might be 2:45 or so. And so we would open up, and then, you know, the school kids who are just getting out of school could come by, and then we stay open later in order to accommodate late night play in tournaments, because we had a lot of tournaments. And so that's how that worked. And now the new location opens at 10 a.m. and stays open until, well, we're in winter hours now, so we close at 8 p.m. instead of 9 p.m. But the reason for that is the crowd that comes in isn't just a younger crowd who is either getting off of work at 5 or school kids getting off at 3. It's people who are taking lunch breaks to come and pick up their comics. You know, it's an older crowd who might already be up, or parents who might have dropped their kids off at school and will stop in. And also, it's a little bit of a buffer time from 10 till noon, that if you have some work to get done still in the store, you know, you might get people popping in, but you can also sit there and still answer the phone or take a delivery and do a little bit of work before it gets busy for a lunch hour or the like. So your hours of operation are very important to consider as well with your store and how you want to run it.
Yeah, so I'm not going to name the store, but anybody who's from Brisbane knows the store I'm talking about, and therefore probably know who I am. But 11 o'clock was a pretty good time, because we had a lot of people come. Our store was just outside the CBD. It was a little bit of a walk, but there were still a few office blocks around, and there are a good 4 or 5 private schools nearby.
Okay. Yeah, I was just going to ask what it was around your store, because I will pronounce it as you have, Brisbane, although I'm used to calling it Brisbane, but I have an American accent to you, so... Brisbane? What is that? That's dumb.
No. Oh, I
But
think
yeah. Do you have
schools
schools?
are,
Do you have other businesses that will help support? And I'm sorry, I
yeah.
interrupted you. Please continue.
I was going to say, you could probably call the Brisbane that's near Los Angeles Brisbane, but don't call the Brisbane in Queensland Brisbane.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, no. Yeah, so we used to get a couple of people coming in off lunch breaks, but it was also really good for deliveries because quite often we'd have like we actually had USPS a couple of times, but like the delivery companies, they would put our run in, our store in a run with other like accounting firms or whatever else because we were like in just the perfect spot to do like a midday drop off. Whereas we did try for a little while there a 3 o'clock open, and it just really didn't work because the delivery companies would show up at our door at 12 o'clock or whatever, drop off, and would literally leave thousands of dollars worth of stuff just sitting there waiting for the manager, or they give the store they give the store a call and let them know that hey, we're dropping off all this product. Like we one delivery we had the pre-release stuff for one of the Magic events just dropped on the floor. I think it worked out to be about 15 grand worth of sealed Magic product just left on a doorstep. Like, and there's no way that they could have hid it as well because it was like a shop front. Like shop front thing. It was open to the main road that was nearby. Yeah.
Yep. Been there.
Working in a store, delivery companies just. All right, so we've been by a store, and here's like 30 grand worth of product we just left there. Bye.
I was very fortunate.
And looting's happening outside town.
FedEx doesn't care. They come by, and if you're there or not, and their facility is like an hour and a half away if I wanted to even go and pick it up, but it was all odd hours. UPS though, at least here locally, so I can only speak for the UPS in my area. They actually tailored the run of the delivery driver to come by when we were open, and also I did have a business neighbor who I also could like authorize to sign on the packages, and she would put them behind her counter for us in case something needed a signature or it was inclement weather or something. So it's good to be friends with your business neighbors.
Yeah, we couldn't really. It was just a weird situation. Like where we were, there was a cafe, a Domino's, and a corner store, 7-Eleven type deal. But the block could have had 8, 9 businesses. But for as long as I can remember, there's only ever been 4 in there. Like it's a good spot, but the rent is just a little bit too much for non-established businesses. Like the store owner got a fantastic deal, from what I understand, on the rent because the company that the landlords wanted a bit more, and he's come back and said no. So I think he ended up getting half of what he was originally paying because of there's a whole stuff around. Like the store was meant to be closed for a month at most. It ended up being close to 7 or something, and it was just a bad situation. So he basically said, if I don't get this extra area upstairs, I want half off my rent. So he got half off his rent.
And that's the closed up area that you were just talking about.
Closed up, 1,000 square feet that just isn't being used.
Just sitting there. Oh gosh.
Yeah, and probably will never be used.
Is there something that I'm sorry if there was another point you wanted to continue?
No, go
okay. On. In our conversations, I brought up with Allie that we had she has the holiday Boxing Day, which isn't really observed here in the U.S. and kind of the equivalent is Black Friday, the Friday after Thanksgiving here. Is there something in the industry that is particularly Australian? Is there something that whether it's a verbiage, a business practice, a particular holiday? Is there something that would be different between a U.S., a Canadian, and an Australian game store?
Well, that's sort of the obvious with like the dedicated public holidays, like
Mm-hmm.
Australia Day, Anzac Day, and whatever else. And the fact that we've got, depending on where you are in Australia, you've got 3 different Queen's birthdays. Go figure.
Hmm.
Like language, probably. See, not sure how big it is in the US, but you might see mates rates a few places. So friends prices, but offered to everybody. Like I probably those of you who are familiar with Australians and trying to buy any sort of technology or magic product or anything like that, and the shipping costs, you have to deal with what's referred to as the Australian tax, which is a combination of shipping, exchange rates, and just general Australian. Hey, look, it's Australia. We can charge them double for whatever reason.
Like an importation tax, a tariff,
import tax, shipping costs,
okay,
plus exchange rate. So, how much would you be selling a standard Magic Gathering booster for, American?
I think it's $4.25.
All right, give me a second. So USD to AUD. So $4.25. So $4.25 American. $4.25. $4.25 American cents comes out to be $5.80 Australian. The store currently sells Magic Gathering booster packs for $7 Australian. Because that's just the price that we have to set. With the Ultimate Masters that's coming up, the new premium Magic Gathering product.
Woo!
A booster box, I believe, was meant to be retailing at just shy of 600 Australian dollars.
And you have to compete with people who are in their mom's basement selling them for like $5 above US cost.
Well, we're actually a little bit lucky on that because Wizards has a strict no import-export of sealed product. You need a specific supplier's license in order to ship sealed product.
Oh, so you don't have that problem down in Australia?
Sort of. There's always those workarounds, like a couple of my mates have put in orders and then had them delivered to a middleman who then ships it to us in Australia.
Okay.
And of course, people can actually fly over to the US and wherever else and just buy boxes and bring it back in their luggage.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, what's TSA going to do? Like, oh, it's a bunch of Magic cards. That's not... It might be weird, but it's not going to get you yanked off a plane.
Well, I know the TSA love Magic cards because it's a very solid block that looks suspicious.
Oh.
In luggage, shall we say. Because, like, on an X-ray, it's literally, like, what? A 4-inch by 9-inch by 3-inch, like, solid mass.
And it's in a foil pack too, so it might baffle the X-rays. Oh my gosh!
Metal as well, so it's not going to set up a metal detector, but it just looks sus as.
Yeah. And then they got to open up all your sealed product to make sure you're not.
Oh no! They make you open up the They make you open up your baggage. Like one of my mates came back from GP Vegas during the year. And he had to open up his luggage. He basically just opened it up and showed that it was a sealed Magic the Gathering booster box. And then, okay, that's fine. Yeah. Like, Brisbane's kind of a weird animal because 10 years ago there would have been about 3, maybe 4 stores that would regularly run events. And that was the store I'm at and several comic book stores. In the last 10 years, the peak, I think, was at 40 stores, and that was comic book stores, dedicated card and board game stores, and some video game stores would all run regular events. And in the last 2 years, it's probably dropped back to about 20 to 30, just due to competition with each other.
Yeah.
And some cases, the primary business model of the businesses, like there was an internet cafe that used to be very, very successful, but the last few years just hasn't, because you don't have to you don't have to go to an internet cafe to run a raid anymore.
Yeah.
With your mates, you can do it quite happily using Discord, such as we're doing now, or it might also be it's getting cheaper and cheaper to build pretty good computers. So
yeah, the more we're connected, the further apart we continue to drift.
Yep.
Just in, and I'm guilty of this too. I mean, I'll put my nose in my, in my phone, and I'm talking to people. I mean, heck, there's times where I might be replying to people on Discord. If I'm sitting at a restaurant or something like that, and yet I'm with you all, but I'm not with you all. Or I'm speaking, but we're not. It's not the same as even what we're doing here, TJ, which is having a voice conversation where you and I might as well just effectively be heads up with each other. I mean, obviously being heads up would be cool, because we'd be out having a lunch or something, and just enjoying and shooting the breeze.
I would prefer to be on camera, but somehow during my travels I've uninstalled the driver on my laptop's camera. I can't work out how to reinstall it.
Oh, well, I mean, if you do get it set up, then I can always I can bring you through.
Yeah, I'll maybe not today, maybe not for a while. Like I'm getting at the start of next year, I'm starting a brand new job, and that's going to be paying quite well. So, for a first year teacher, I'm going to be paying quite well. But like my first paycheck, I'm just dedicating to like brand new computer and a couple of video games, because my laptop's at this point where I can't play any like brand new modern video games. Like the two games that I'm playing at the moment are World of Tanks and Warframe, which are both very well optimized-ish. Heavy emphasis on the ish part, but between them they're about 5 and 10 years old. Like if I want to play Don't Be Sorry Golden, it's a good job. American teachers, being an American teacher, is also very different to Australian teachers, like culturally. But I'll leave that for another day. That's not a conversation for today.
I'm sure, and I would love to have that conversation, even if you and I have it on the side.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure we could explore some very interesting, differences that are positive or negative in either direction. Because teaching other people's kids, imagine that. There's always going to be arguments and controversy and just things that happen.
Yeah. Does anybody in chat have any questions for me or Maddie?
Well, if people in chat here want to ask you questions about your story, otherwise, I have a couple that I've been hanging on to as well. As we're having this casual, meandering conversation about the what you've experienced and the journey that you've taken.
All right, what have you got? Fire away.
Coffee Cat. Oh, okay. That Coffee Cat was making an opinion. I had a thought that I would go into teaching. Not as a current teacher. Well, at least not as an official one. I guess what I do on Twitch is teaching. I it's a teacher in so much that I teach in the literal basic sense of the word, but it's not the same as maybe a profession. But if you want to go into it, Coffee, I don't want to discourage anyone from getting into teaching. It has drawbacks. Every career does. Just make sure that you're going into it. You're going into it with both eyes open, and you ask questions and you find out what's going to be expected of you, and that you prepare yourself for the hoops that you'll have to jump through in order to get a job in that field, or in that profession.
Yeah. Just trying to think like good stories I can tell from my experiences. All right.
Okay. Go ahead.
So, Maddie, do you remember? I think it was middle last year. Wizards of the Product announced they're going to do a brand new unset.
Yes.
For Magic.
Yes.
Brand new unset. They did Unhinged.
Yes.
I was kind of looking forward to it. It was it looked like a bit of fun. When I play Magic, I'm a little bit more serious. I can have a bit of fun, but when things get just wacky, I take a step back. I have left several Commander games because it's just like I'm not having fun here. So I walk into work one day. It was a Saturday, and get my shift started, put out the sign-up sheets, and go, oh, hang on, today is Unhinged. We're doing events all day. As a result of that day, I refuse to play Unhinged. I had the misfortune of having to run 7 events. Not quite simultaneously, but of Unhinged. It was fun, it was wacky, but I'll never do it again.
Is it just because like you had to keep making weird rulings on the funny cards, or it just you don't like that kind of Magic, and it was really just not it wasn't to your tastes?
Like column A, column B, but very much column A. Like I was constantly being called over to make judgment calls and on rulings and stuff from players that I know are very, very spiky, are very competitive. They want to win, and they're coming over asking close questions about cards that there are no official rules about.
Yes.
Like, what? But I know there's this very interesting trend I noticed. On one of the cards, you have to ask somebody you're not playing against the question, do you like squirrels? If they say yes, you get a squirrel token, you get a little extra creature. If they say no, tough luck, you don't get it. At the start of the day, or at the start of each event, you would hear, do you like squirrels? Yes. By the end of the day, you heard, do you like squirrels? No. Just this flat, hard no from everybody. There's another one. There were 2 cards that referenced high-fiving. And my other problem with Unhinged is they had some cards that had unique abilities that I felt didn't quite work. Like the do you like squirrels question. If they had one that was like destroy a creature, and if they say no to the question, you get to kill a squirrel. That would make more sense because you could very much see what people are playing in other games. Mm-hmm. Like there were 2 cards that referenced high-fiving. One of them was you got up out of your table, run around the room and high-five as many people as possible. The other one was you high-five somebody. If they didn't give you a high-five, your creature got an extra benefit. So you very much see who you're benefiting or not. So it sort of went from, oh, this is fun, to, all right, who are they playing against? Do I like this person? Yes, no, yes, no.
It also brings into consideration physical contact between people. And if someone doesn't want to interact with another person, I mean, maybe they have a germ phobia, or honestly, the person is just gross who's offering the handshake or whatever. There's a Yu-Gi-Oh card like that. I think it was called Yu-Gi-Oh Friendship. You had to offer a handshake and you could like share life points or something like that. And so that's good concept, right? Because it's a party. We're all playing Magic and we're all doing silly stuff with squirrels and high fives, and something to consider.
Admittedly, it was a fun event. We made bonkers amounts of money, but it just left a bad taste in my mouth because I had several people become quite unhappy with my rulings on some of these cards because I read the card. Like in Magic, there's a bit of a joke, bit of advice. It's, if you don't know what a card does, read it again. And quite often the card itself isn't the problem, it's how it interacts with other things. But with Unhinged and the other unsets, some of these cards are deliberately worded awkwardly, and when you're trying to make like fair and balanced judgment calls on some of these cards, you're going to make people unhappy very, very easily.
Are the cards that are sent down to you, do they have the extra U and other is center CENTRE?
No.
No. So it's US English that's sent to you?
Yeah, which is a little bit unfortunate. But it's easier to do one version of English than 2. Mm-hmm. Like, they'll just add in that little extra bit of annoyance sort of situation. Yeah.
Does that cause any interesting table talk? So here, I speak U.S. English, and I spell with U.S. English. And so here we are, we're exporting our own unique verbiage or spelling. Or is it just really accepted by the community that this is what it is, and it doesn't have an odd, like, this didn't translate so well from one culture to the other?
No, like, we can, as Australians, we can look at something and go, yeah, that makes sense. Like, until they print a card that has aluminum on it, then we're going to have problems. But, no, Australians put up with a lot, especially gamers of all varieties. Like, for a long time, I played Battlefield with an American clan. So I was very used to playing with on ping of 200 plus and doing reasonably well. And then I joined an Australian group that had a couple of Americans, and the Americans would always complaining, oh, the ping's too high, it's ridiculous. You look at that ping, it's like 150, and you're looking at it's like, what are you complaining about? Australia just sort of puts up with a lot of things. Language, like colour, honour, flavour, that sort of thing, Australians don't really worry about with Magic. And a lot of games, because we know what's going on. It's not as though you are getting shipped a French option and there's no other choice there. Like,
well, I think it's... I think, if we get down to what you were talking about earlier with, the Australian tax as it was summarized, you need a certain sense of pragmatism if you're going to live on an island remote from, the other continents here, and everything has to come to you, or you have to export everything that you have. And it's not the same as England or Japan, which are at least close to a mainland. I mean, you're out there. You're in the middle of nowhere, and even on the continent, and I say this with due respect to nature and geology and everything, a lot of Australia is also the middle of nowhere because of the vast open, it's not like it's a giant continent-sized megacity like a Ravnica or something like that. And so you do need a certain sense of pragmatism in order to, to operate in that culture. Just kind of like with Canadian culture, at least as the U.S. looks at it, it's very kind, it's welcoming, it's that very I'm sorry, SOHRRY, and so we can have some fun with that too. Angelus MI says, who pronounces aluminum weird is Canadian, or do you mean aluminium?
Aluminium, like, until they print a card that says with the American spelling of aluminium, of aluminum, then Australia's going to be fine. Until they print that, you're done.
Tables will be flipped, riots everywhere. It's
yeah.
Well, then I hopefully Mirrodin never discovers the secret of that metal or something, or it'd be a Phyrexian metal because they're the bad guys, and that would be sowing those seeds of chaos.
Well, Phyrexians, I don't call them the bad guys. They're just a highly invasive force, like the British were for many, many years. Australia puts up a lot, and Australia's probably more unhappy with the Australian government than we are with a lot of policies that come in from overseas. Like, Australia's internet is trashed here. Like, I'm on ADSL2 plus. Like, in some places we're only just getting fiber, and in most cases it's barely better than ADSL2 plus at best. Whereas you look at Korea, and they've got free high-speed internet in their hotels. Like,
yep, just like just gigabyte access everywhere, or whatever. Yeah, it's I'm in a couple different chat groups, and in one of them it discusses politics, and there are a couple people in that channel that are from Australia, and I've learned a couple opinions about this and that, but that'll be a conversation for another time here.
For another day.
Unless we're talking about things like, from what I understand, there's some rather infamous or notorious censorship laws, and that would relate to the things that we're talking about when it comes to comics and games and artistic expression and what would constitute something being appropriate for the public at all, or to receive a certain a certain rating of this is equivalent of like RPG 13 or an adult rating or something along those lines.
Australia's not too bad on that. Like, I still can't work out. Like, you hear, what was it? Deadpool 1 was the most successful R-rated movie in America. Like, when it comes over to Australia, it's an MA-15 plus movie. Like, R is not very difficult, but R is basically only for, like, slasher horror, gore horror in Australia. Or things with, like, very explicit sexual content of the unwanted variety.
Yeah, I gotcha. That was a very tactful way of putting it, too. Well, then, as we're exploring our commonalities and differences, a question that came to mind, and this is something that I have offered to the others that I've talked to. What's a moment? What is a moment to you? Like, what was the most human experience that you had in your store, or in your time? I guess kind of lingering into the future, but of your time that you put in at that shop. And when I say human, it doesn't have to be bad or good specifically. What is the most human experience you had while working at a game store?
I got sort of two stories there. I'm not sure about the second one, but the first one was there's a kid who used to come in over an afternoon. He'd come in and he'd just play with his mates. He'd use their cards, he'd play a couple of board games, but he'd never buy anything, never spent a dime. One day he came up to me and says, "Hey, can you teach me how to play Magic?" He was playing, it wasn't Yu-Gi-Oh!, it wasn't Pokemon, it was Vanguard. For whatever reason, one of the local high schools had a big Vanguard community. He's come up to me, I'm at the counter, he's like, "Hey, can you teach me how to play Magic?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So I sort of sit him aside at the edge of the desk and we're playing away, and all his mates leave, and I go, all right, time to go. And kept doing that for a couple of weeks, and then one week he came in and said, "Hey, thank you very much for teaching me how to play. It's been good fun." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." About a month later, I heard that he won a major tournament in the local area. I'm like, "Oh, good on him." And he came back, not quite gave me a hug, but he's given me a handshake. "Thanks for teaching me how to play. I love this game." Well, because if you actually took that little bit of time to teach me, because I tried to ask my mates and they said, "Nah, we all play Vanguard. Stuff you." A little bit of a positive moment there. I'm like, yeah. So, nice little thing. But I got one story that I'm not of a particularly unpleasant customer. He's come in and he's like, "All right, I want to sell off a bunch of my collection." So he sold off $300 worth, I think it was. $300 to $400 worth of stuff. Because he was buying and selling stuff for various decks. And he's sitting there at the counter going through our singles folders, picking out individual cards and how much can I get for this? How much can I get for this? How much can I get for this? And he's he's pushing very, very hard to get a good price out of me. It would have been just after Unhinged came out as well, because he bought 2 boxes of Unhinged. But a week later, he comes in with I think it was his girlfriend or something, and he's just lined me up, bailed me up. "You cheated me. You've done something wrong. What have you done?" "Nah, you've cheated me." I'm like, "All right, what are you talking about?" And he's then sort of tried to work back through his all the stuff that we bought and sold. And he's like, "Look, you've charged me $200 too much. What have you done?" And I'm like, "No, hang on. I thought I'd made a mistake, so I've sort of initially taken his side on this. I'm like, all right, I'm starting to do the math. And about 15 minutes in this conversation of, all right, working out the cards and working out the coming out, he goes, "Oh, where's the store owner? I want to chat to him. This is all his fault." So he starts trying to chase up the store owner. What the hell's going on?
Yeah, I'm getting suspicious tingles. Like I'm wanting to watch what's happening here, and
yeah. And like I'm sitting there going, I'm still at this point. I'm still on his side. Like I still think there's a mistake being made.
Okay.
But it wasn't until he's gone to leave that I've noticed that he hasn't brought back any of the sealed product that we sold him. All he's brought back, and also noticed that he hadn't brought back any of the expensive cards that we'd sold him. It was only like when I say expensive cards, I mean like the stuff that's $100 plus.
Mm-hmm.
All he brought back was the stuff that's like $50 or less. I'm like, oh, okay, what's going on here? So I start doing, and I'm moving slowly but surely away from his side. I start doing up a list of what have we got? What's going on here? Got a phone call, called up the boss. All right, hang on, I'll come in and have a look in a little while. A few days later, boss comes over and says, look, you've done good work with this guy. Been chatting to some of the other guys around Brisbane, and he's been trying to run this on them as well. Coming in and spending a chunk of money, coming back a few days later and claiming that we've overcharged, that they've overcharged him. Seriously? It wasn't until we were the fourth store that he tried this on in about a month. Just frustrating more than anything.
TJ, thank you very much for bringing that up. It is super frustrating, and I'll tell you, as you're telling this story, my mind just kicked into, okay, is it a distraction technique because the girlfriend was going to go grab something while the guy was blustering at the front counter? Was he trying to shortchange you, like, do one of those like, hey, can you give me a change for a $20 bill? What, you only gave me a 10? And he starts confusing you, and it's like, hey, and it goes into that. But you brought up
the girlfriend was there as heavy artillery. She was bailing me up as well, because it was actually her that's come up to the counter on the second time around and gone, look, you've made a mistake here. And then he's sort of followed in, and I'm going, they wouldn't have been able to steal anything anyway, because the store had like 40, 50 people in it, including several other employees. But it's just like, I get the feeling it was like all right, you've made a mistake, pay me back now.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
That is, So what you brought up, and this is another excellent point to bring up to any of you who are either working in or looking to work in or are, wanting to be in a position of ownership here, is you are going to have people who are going to try and run cons on you. And it is very easy to get flustered, especially if you are taking that customer is always right approach. And it is important that you keep your calm and you do one thing at a time. And if someone insists you do two things at a time, do one thing at a time, and address the concerns. Don't get distracted. Don't let someone bully you in your own store. And I'll tell you, even if you're not the manager, if you're like the assistant manager, or you're the part-time opener, you work like 2 mornings a week or something. If you're the one in the store, you are the BSD of the store. And, don't let the fact that you're not an owner allow people to come in and bully you or to try and run a con on you. And I won't get into what BSD stands for to keep my own self-imposed.
Yep, I just looked at that.
And
it was like a proper acronym, but no.
I would also encourage you, and this is also why, please don't let your store get into a cutthroat competition with the other stores around you. And TJ highlighted an amazing point, because stores should communicate about this, because collections get stolen, people try and run cons, and also people are going to get kicked out of one store. Maybe they made a very inappropriate comment towards another person for whatever reason, or it was a DCI ban. I mean, that might be a little easier because if you're scanning in cards, it'll show up, But DCI ban
is more for tournament play. But...
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're running that sort of, like PT qualifiers and stuff. But yeah, I mean, you'll have unsavory people who are we're gonna bring it back around to playing the mommy daddy game. Well, mommy store wasn't gonna give me $50 on this card. Daddy store, are you gonna give me $50? Or they'll be very aggressive about it and try and bully you into it. And say, I just looked this up, it's $50. Well, sure, it's $50 on Star City Games. Fine. Pay Star City Games prices, but that's not what we use to base our prices.
Well, sort of. Like, the fact that you brought up Star City just reminded me of the fact that the number of people that would come in with a collection and they'd go, oh, I want to sell a chunk of this collection. I go, all right. So I start pulling things out, and at the time, I didn't have the authority to authorize sales of above $200 cash. If they wanted more than $200, it had to go through bank accounts. I had one day, a guy come in, I'm going to pick a story here. I had a guy come in, he had a beautiful collection of just modern staples. It was like Fetchlands, Shocklands, Tamagotchi, Snapcaster, Liliana, just like fairly pricey good stuff. And I think it totaled out to be, all the stuff he wanted to sell totaled out to be about $1,200 retail US to buy. And the way it works is we, at the time, had like a buy list website, buy list program that I'm not sure that's run at the moment, but we had a buy list program, and the way it worked is we'd offer that price minus a couple dollars just to make sure that we were making a bit of money there.
Yeah.
And he's gone, all right, fine. My manager, the store owner who carries cash more than I've ever seen anybody else do, come in and go, all right. And he was on the way. I'm like, all right, if you wait an hour, he's going to be in, and he can probably offer you cash, because he wanted cash on the day, which should have sent off a bit of red flag. It was all legit, but it was just like,
Yeah, and by the way, on a quick, if I can pause you for a second, if your instinct, because this is what CJ was talking about, if your instinct is that someone is rushing you or hustling you in your own store or pushing you on prices, like they know what their prices are, like what your prices are, and they're the ones coming to you for money, have that red flag go up in your mind. Now, be tactful. You don't have to be aggressive or treat them like a scumbag, because some people just have that kind of jittery personality, or they think they're being helpful and said, oh, I priced all this out, and they used a completely like baffling other price system.
So what ended up happening is in that hour, he's come to me. He's like, I haven't played Magic in a while, and all this stuff was like 5 to 10 years old at this point. He's come in. I've offered him a price of, I think I offered him $750 Australian, $750 Australian for cash, or in this case, through cards or through the bank account, or $820 store credit. And he's gone, all right, fine. So he sat down, and in the next 45 minutes, before the owners got in, he's walked up to me and gone, look, what's going on here? I just looked up online that I can get these cards. I should be able to get more for these cards. Like, what are you talking about? And he shows me Star City Games on his phone. I've just gone, damn it. So then I had to explain to him the whole buy list, sell list pricing difference, and he's gone, oh, this doesn't seem right. And then the owner walks in, sits him down, explains what's going on, and I'm just like, curse you, availability of prices on the internet.
Because you're and you know what, some stores may base their prices off Star City Games, and when I bring them up, I'm not saying that they're like somehow a nefarious organization or criminals. It's just that Star City Games is one store that has one set of prices, and it itself is not a marketplace. And in your store might use another marketplace, or you might even try and triangulate a price between several. You might go between TCG Player and eBay, or you might use Cool Stuff Inc. And so it's having to explain your business to an irate customer who thinks you're ripping them off is something you're gonna have to get really good at, having that minute I'm gonna sell you our business concept speech. So I did want to make at least that note that should somehow someone from Star City Games sees this, I'm not upset at you all, but it's just if someone tries to base their prices on your prices when that's not what we use as a reference, it is what it is. And I also wanted to follow up with that point of why you shouldn't be in heated toxic competition with each other, because you should be calling each other if a problem occurs. If someone turns in, or even if someone is suspicious, call up the other stores and say, hey, I just had a dude I'd never seen in here before, and he just came in with a binder of Power 9. I told him that I'd check in on it. So he's off taking a walk around the block. I need to know, are you guys missing Power 9? Because I knew you had some in your showcase or something like that. And because you're going to get these situations where talking with the other stores is going to give you valuable information. Because someone will say, hang on, I'll check. Whoa, it was a purple binder? And it had all the Power 9, and the Black Lotus had like a ding in the upper right corner? Yeah, that's the one. That's ours. That dude stole it. Like, and then, okay, send the police over, and I'll distract him or something. Now, I made that scenario up. I've had similar things happen, but nothing like that. But I wanted to make sure the point got across that if you have other stores, and when I say in your area, I don't mean in like a 5-mile area. Like, if the next store over to you is a half hour away, you better darn well believe that people who have high value collections, especially if they're stolen or they're trying to run scams on stores, they want to travel long distances because they are not going to think that you're going to communicate to other stores that are a half hour away. They're going to try and hit you up. They're going to steal from them and sell to you, or they're going to do vice versa. And so you got to maintain these good relationships with other managers and other store owners.
Yeah. One thing that's very good about our store was that we were part of a chain in Australia. But one thing that's also very good about Australia is, especially in the vintage side of things, so like your Power 9 and your high-priced reserve list stuff, is the more unique the card is. So like your Power 9, for example, there's only so much of it in Australia, and if something is missing, it's very easy to track it down Australia-wide. I think recently there was a time walk got stolen from somebody's vintage deck in Perth, and it showed up in Adelaide 3 weeks later. And because Australia's got such a tight knit Magic community, just due to the nature of how many people there are in Australia, within like 3 days of it showing up, was back in Perth in the guy's deck. So. Yeah, it works out pretty well. Like, it's not to say that thefts don't happen. The store has been robbed at least 3 times since I've been going there. Once was fairly minor. I think it was just somebody came in and took a couple. I think they stole like 2 booster boxes. I remember somebody coming in and stealing a couple. Some singles and stuff, but the biggest break-in, somebody came in and stole all the valuable cards, and it was very much a targeted hit because it was all that was stolen were the expensive folders, so it was stuff that had power in it, stuff that had OG dual land stuff. Stuff like the cheapest card was probably like $20 in some of these folders. In the Brisbane community a few years back, a guy had literally every single Magic product he had stolen, and he had, I think he did the numbers and he worked it out to be somewhere around the mark of 200,000 Australian in sealed product and open product.
Wow.
Just vanish. Some showed up, some didn't, but
I think that I stressed this in one of my other conversations, but if you're going to run a store like this, everyone, please get a half dozen, get a dozen cameras. Even if you have just a 1,000 square foot facility, put cameras, especially if they can save to a hard drive that you could access remotely or rewind or even save off site, because it's going to help, and it's also going to break your heart when you see the people who steal from you. But they're there for a reason. And I'm glad, TJ, that because when you're saying that you had theft, that it didn't come down to a robbery, like an aggressive robbery, like with a gun or a knife or something like that, and it was just more of a theft or a smash and grab or something like that. But have you actually? So this will bring something up with the owner or as a manager. Did you ever have to have that talk with your employees about what do you do if someone comes in and holds up the store?
I was never the manager, but we did have that conversation, and it was polite. You remain polite. You keep it short. You follow instructions.
Yeah.
But you're You look for recognizable details. If they're wearing a red hoodie, if it's got a little bit of rip in it, can you see their face? You start, you keep it polite, but you memorize as much as you possibly can, which was a little bit of a problem for me because I'm not quite what's called face blind, but I have a lot of difficulty describing somebody's face to people. So I started making note of, was their hair parted a certain way? Was the did they have their hoodie up or down? Fortunately, I've never had to deal with that. And back sort of on the cameras, it's also good if people start accusing people of other things. Just have a few cameras not pointed at the door, but actually being pointed at the play area.
Yeah,
so
like down.
Goes,
exactly. I've caught people doing that. Someone will walk away to, I don't know, go throw away the wrappers at a sealed event. Someone reaches across the table, and if I didn't have that camera pointed down at the play area. Also, another tip for all of you watching, if you go to an event and you have a backpack, I mean, you could put a luggage lock on your zipper, but make sure at least one arm or like one strap of your backpack goes underneath your chair. So when you're sitting down, you are weighing down your backpack, because people, and this will happen in your store during a busy event as well, people will come by and just go, whoop, and they'll walk away with a backpack that's theirs, you know, by the looks of anyone who's casually playing in a tournament. And meanwhile, they just stole your binders or they stole whatever is in your backpack. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And you are absolutely correct in that. And if you get into this, now fortunately, you know, game stores, card stores, comic stores aren't a primary target for holdups. I mean, as much as U.S. crime statistics, I'm sure, are discussed in many political forums or sociological criminology forums. Even here, these stores aren't really heavily targeted because they're not known to be cash heavy, and they're not. I mean, even look at my break-in from last night. Someone threw a rock or a piece of concrete through my door, dashed in, grabbed my Xboxes to presumably fence for some drug money. But, no one's going to take a bunch of Magic cards if, how many drug users are playing, are playing Magic and are familiar with the vagaries of the stock market pricing. I'm not saying that they don't exist, but if you're going for that quick grab, or if you're going to make an irrational decision to bring a weapon into a store and hold it up for money, game stores don't have that reputation. It's not like a convenience store. It's not a 7-Eleven where you're like, oh, geez, it's been 2 days since it hasn't been robbed. Or it's not known to be like a bank that has, rich cash deposits or the like. But still, if you are in a position of leadership there, you have to have this conversation, because you do handle cash, and you might, you're hemming and hawing, and I understand why. You might have someone who comes in and does something dire in order to get some rare cards or something along those lines. Or just look, they don't even have to know what you do. A person can walk into your store drunk or strung out. That's happened. And you have to abate that situation. And you have to do so in a way that you aren't provoking an attack if someone has a weapon. Now, I've never had a weapon pulled on me, but I have had to tactfully take care of some things. And so, yeah, what you described, silently look the person over, try and get details, be cooperative. Because, look, if I'm your boss and, someone comes in, I want you alive. I'll make another $100. I'll get out of $100 missing out of my cash box some way or form. But I will never live down if I somehow ordered you to throw your life in the middle of a robbery for $100 off of some Magic sales. So you got to make sure you keep yourself safe. And this is generic advice. I'm going to throw out also the generic, make sure you talk to your local police and you abide by any safety procedures or legalities that might apply to you and your, city, county, state, country, etc. Golden, so I haven't had a robbery at the counter. That was a confrontation. I've had products stolen from me. And I've had people who did a distraction technique and went behind the counter to grab a couple things. So I've been robbed that way. and I've had shoplifting as well, but I haven't been held up. I've not had a hold-up experience.
I believe somebody a little while ago asked, what was your most real moment?
Oh, well, thank you for...
What was it?
yeah, it was golden.
Yep, golden. Alright, so most real moment.
All right. Well, you're turning this around on me. Now the interviewer is the interviewee.
Mm-hmm.
The most real moment was... I'll say the story again because it is the most real moment. In the summertime here in Sandusky, Ohio, it's a very popular tourist destination because we have an amusement park called Cedar Point. And if you work at Cedar Point and you live far enough away, they'll put you up in employee dormitories. And they'll take like a little bit out of your check, but there's laundry facilities and all that. And as part of a bonus for working at the amusement park over the course of the summer, they will give you, at least at the time, it was $1 per hour you worked on your contract. And so you'd sign a contract saying, yeah, I can start work, whatever, June 5th until, September 5th or something like that. You could customize it. But anyway, if you fulfilled your contract, you would get your bonus at the end. And so for some people, that's several $100s, $1,000 by the end of their contract. But if you leave your contract or you're fired, you don't get that bonus. So there's a little bit of background, which also included me having worked 5 summers at Cedar Point. Okay, so we fast forward after that. I'm at the store, and a gentleman comes in, and he's wearing the uniform of someone who's in their merchandise department. Easy to recognize. Hey, you work at Cedar Point. And not that I wouldn't otherwise, but I went out from behind the counter, and I welcomed him, and I asked him, so what are you into? And oh, you're at Cedar Point, and shared stories. And I could also tell, this was a big guy. And, I'm not going to be presumptive. I don't know if it's a thyroid thing or if it is just overeating and a sedentary lifestyle. It could be just something, chemical, hormonal, behavioral. I don't know, and frankly, that's not my business. My business is to make sure that people who are in the store are, served, they're welcomed, and that they're a part of the community that we want to express. But he had some medical stuff because I think he had arthritis, because just kind of watching him walk, it looked kind of painful even to me. And I'm not him. So he comes in and I address him, and we talk a little bit, and he says he likes Superman comics. And so I bring him through the back issues, and he says, okay, yeah, I'll subscribe to this, and I'll be here, and I'll be good for it. And so I pull some issues and I get a subscription going. And so I see him, every now and again. He'll stop in, pick up his stuff, just as he said he would. How's it going, and so forth. Well, towards the end of the summer, but not the end of the summer, he comes in and he's wearing his normal clothes. And I said, oh, hey, day off, something along those lines. And he said, no, I'm quitting. And I, of course, in the back of my mind, I knew that he was leaving a lot of money on the table by doing so. So I was concerned. I said, oh, what, if you don't mind talking about it, what happened? And he said that, his roommates and the people he works with just continuously, were continuously bullying him and like putting him down because of his weight and his medical issues and all this other stuff. And he couldn't take it. And so he was willing to leave in the middle. I'll say in the middle of summer. I think it was towards the end, but it definitely wasn't the completion of his contract. And so he was leaving that standard employment, let alone all of the bonus money he would have earned otherwise, on the table, because he was being ridiculed and such by his coworkers. And he told me, he's telling me this story, and I was getting very flustered and upset. I wasn't heavily bullied in school, but I was a nerd. I was the guy who went into high school and I played Magic in the morning before school started. And he said, I wanted to stop in here because I'm actually leaving. I'm leaving town. And I had to tell you that this is the one place where I always felt welcome. And where I didn't feel like I was being judged by the people who are here. And I could talk to people, and I wasn't made fun of for liking Superman. And at that point, I was almost in tears in front of this guy because of what he was saying. And it was at that point, not that I wasn't confident before that what I was doing was good, but this solidified what I was doing was the right thing. for me, and also the way that I was performing my business was correct as well. And it was through for someone's personal tragedy was a moment of triumph where it only furthered my resolve to make sure that everyone was welcome, just not in a patronizing way where everyone gets a trophy. You're here, and that's fine. You can have your flaws, and you can have your own triumphs, and you can have all of, you are you. And I want you here. And I want you to understand that you are welcome here. Unless you make yourself unwelcome, because I've had to kick people out of the community for various reasons. But so Golden, that was my triumph. That was my human moment, my most human moment. But I've gone through so much stuff. There's been pregnancies in the community, among younger people, and that's always a kind of a controversial thing. But so you have some of the young girls who've been coming in, and they say that this is what they're going through, and you tell them, you're not banned. You're welcome here. And if anyone's making fun of you or is saying stuff about you, you let me or CJ or whoever's behind the counter, you let us know. If this is, people of all orientations and ethnicities and melanin contents, and if you have epicanthic folds over your eyes or religions, that's the great equalizer about a store like this. And I know I'm preaching to the choir to you, TJ, here. When you walk in through the store, you'll have people playing Magic, or I'll use D&D, because that's a great medium that we use here on the channel traditionally. I have had in the same game a devout Catholic and an avowed atheist both getting along together and accepting a pluralistic pantheon of gods in a game of fantasy. And if you step back and you look at what you do in this business like that, it's the same thing but different. Maybe you never thought of your business like that, but look at what you did, and it's natural, and people are getting along naturally without any kind of coercion or social pressure or anything along those lines. You aren't out there virtue signaling, because you're offering the real deal, baby. It's all you, and what you're promoting in your store is that togetherness. And to have people realize, wow, I actually can get along. You have a 40-year-old sitting across from a 20-year-old or a 10-year-old who are playing Pokemon. Heck, it might even be a generational, a bridge gap, or a bridge over a generational gap, where you'll have a father teaching his son how to play Pokemon. Or even if they don't play, especially for Pokemon, which is kind of a gateway into other games. Parents will bring their kids out to compete, and, they'll stick around in the store. They might read a book or something, but they're still there watching. And when you see that human interaction among people who otherwise probably wouldn't go out of their way to meet each other because of one reason or another, political affiliation, religion, skin color, any of the things that divide us as human beings. You might not otherwise have gone out of your way to meet these people, and yet here they are. And they show up regularly, and they will shake hands or ask how it's going, or say, hey, how's the girlfriend? Or, oh, you're expecting a kid, and, are you excited? And they have these real moments with each other. And TJ, I'd like to think that this is true, not just in my corner of the world, but you have been witness to this too in yours.
Yeah, no, definitely. My best mate met his girlfriend through playing D&D at the store.
Hey! Good endorsement.
Yeah. No. Well, she's way nerdy than him, but let's drop that there. I've seen 10-year-olds come in and play Magic with their 60-year-old grandfather or something and teaching them. I've seen...
Yep.
I met a couple of guys in the community I didn't know were gay, but they came in one day. One guy came in with his husband shortly after it was legalized here in Australia.
Okay.
What? Congratulations. Would you like to buy some singles?
Yeah, you're a human being. Let's interface. What does that matter, right?
Yeah. I have seen the negative side, but usually it's a very isolated, and when it is, it's a very one-off, spiteful moment.
Well,
Somebody...
then here, provide a cautionary tale. What is something that that we should look out for in our stores? That, you know, we want this default of commonality and everyone getting together. But what is something that could happen in a store, if you're willing to provide an example here?
All right, I'll pick a moment here. I was running a sealed event on a Saturday. I believe it was one of the last PPTQs that was run for Magic. Had a player sit down across the table from a guy that I knew he didn't like, and I was just waiting for it. And about 20 minutes in the round, guy packs up. F this, F that. You're a 6-letter derogatory term. You're a 6-letter derogatory term.
Oh, gotcha.
Derogatory term, and I've just gone out.
Yeah.
Just hard out. And they've made up since then. The guy apologized, but it just wasn't okay. Like, I've seen... There are several players in the community who aren't super well liked, but people will still speak to them. I have seen several players who are not very well liked be hard shunned.
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching a draft pod. They needed, in Magic, you need 8 people for a draft. The draft pod had 7 guys that most people don't like. Has put his hand up. Yeah, I'll join the 8, and all 7 of them have walked out the store.
Yeah.
So we had a conversation. All 7 of them, when they walked back in a few days later, and just said that is not okay. I personally don't think I've seen like a systematic bullying, like something you would expect in a high school level, but I have seen people walk out the store and never come back. I have seen people walk out the store and never play Magic again. I've seen people walk out and go to other stores.
Yeah.
It's something that you have to be aware of. People are people. They're going to be great. They're going to be bad. If something doesn't feel right if you see something across the room and it doesn't look right, it doesn't feel right, there's nothing stopping you from just drifting past. Leave the counter for a minute, go for a walk, see what's going on. If you don't want to make it obvious, maybe you're restocking a shelf, maybe you're checking the bin levels, that sort of thing.
Very good tactics, by the way. You're doing your job by, in the store, but you're also observing.
Doing a job by making sure everybody's okay.
Yeah.
Another thing to be aware of is younger players trading with older players.
Yes.
Because it's not so much in the Magic community, but for a long time, there were several people in the Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon community that were just notorious for it. Fortunately, I never had to deal with that because I never worked on Yu-Gi-Oh! Pokemon days, and the Yu-Gi-Oh! Pokemon community sort of died off a bit whilst I was working at the store. Not related to me, by the way, but there are a couple of players that were just notorious, especially at pre-release events and release events. Kid opens up, oh my god, it's that brand new ultra shiny Megalodon banana man. It's worth like $110. I'll trade you $30 worth of cards. Wow, that's a really cool looking card, mister. What's it worth? Oh, it's about $10. In reality, it's about 3 cents.
Yeah.
Like,
that's an excellent point that you made, that you do have to be vigilant for opportunists.
Sharks.
Yeah. Yeah, sharks. Yep.
Sharks, more so. I find opportunists, the people that routinely do it, that I have a major problem with. If somebody sharks you on a deal here or there, like maybe once, or it could be due to lack of knowledge on both parties, but if it's somebody's going out of their way, systematically trying to rort the system, or are deliberately misleading people with card prices. Oh, this card's only worth $100 because it's this printing, when in fact it's $300 because it's that printing. Sort of a thing.
Shlomo said, worst trade deals in the history of trade deals. I could give you one, and also, oh yeah, but hi, check out the boobs on this character, and yes, that's a because that's what I was saying. Might not be the most appropriate thing to have shouted in your store, especially if, like a first time customer walking in. Shlomo, I'll give you a 2-for-1 here. I'm gonna give you the best and worst trade deal at the same time. And TJ, do you still have a little bit more time? Because we can finish and go on a break, and if you have to leave after the break, I understand. But you can come back and we can still talk.
I've got plenty of time. It's 4:30 in the afternoon. I've got nothing to do. Like, the only thing I'm meant to be doing is putting together a D&D character tomorrow because I'm getting involved in a battle royale.
Ooh, I hear those are all the rage.
Go down.
You're working on an Eldritch Knight, weren't you?
Eldritch. I decided on High Elf. 8 levels of Eldritch Knight, 1 level of Forge Cleric.
Okay.
Just that little bit of extra utility.
So then I'll tell the story, and then we'll get up and take like a 10-minute break or so. So Shlomo, one summertime, and all these things seem to happen over summer, right? I had a group come in on a fairly regular basis, young guys. They were, what you would hope to target for your market as a game store, 18 to 35 young guys. They had disposable income. And what to me was actually a really cool thing was that they were Mormon missionaries. So they wore the black slacks, they had the button-down Oxford shirt and the little black name tags. And they would come in, and you know what? They didn't try and convert anyone because when they were in the store, they were there to have fun. And at the time, World of Warcraft trading cards were very big. In fact, you could get some mounts, some scratch-off loot cards to get mounts for World of Warcraft. And so, I mean, they would go around. They do whatever their bishop, they gave them a territory to go and evangelize in. And then they would just come in every so often, and they would buy World of Warcraft cards because they played the game. They were young guys. I mean, just because of their religious affiliation, or even, I mean, they may be doing the missionary for their church wholeheartedly. They could be doing it at a parent's request. I don't know. And, I'm not there to ask them about their religion and their activities, because they're here to buy cards and play with them. Maybe hit that epic loot card and get that, it was a Spectral Tiger. That was the big $100 card people were going for. So anyway, they, over the time, they purchased a group as a collection, and they'd play World of Warcraft with each other. Because they were out of town, they were in our area from another area, because that's how the Mormon missionary system works. Because it's supposed to be kind of a life adventure for you as a young Mormon to go out and do these works in other places. And so after a time, they come in and they look kind of mopey. I'm like, well, hey guys, what's going on? Are you all right? Because I have a concern for them. They're human beings. And they said, yeah, our bishop doesn't like us playing this card game because it has demons in it. And so he told us we have to get rid of all of our World of Warcraft cards. And I looked at him, I'm like, is there nothing? Like, I'll talk to your bishop. Like, I promise I'll be civil. I'll explain to your bishop, that this isn't devil summoning. This isn't encouraging satanic ritual or anything. I'll write you a note. I was kind of being tongue-in-cheek to, bring up the mood a little bit. And especially because I would step up and do this for them. And also because I've always had a plan that if a church were to protest me, because look, D&D and Magic have had a bad rap. I'd have fundamentalists protesting my store at some point in time. So that's another thing that you might always have to be prepared to handle. Anyway, so that's a side note. There was no protest, but the bishop of the local Mormon church told the missionaries, you got to get rid of these cards. I'm not allowing them. And so now I have these guys who just weeks ago, I mean, over the course of several weeks, spent money on boxes of cards, have to turn around and sell back and get rid of all of their WoW cards. And I'm sitting here like, there's only a couple really valuable, because WoW was kind of niche. Even when people were chasing those Spectral Tigers. It wasn't as widely developed as Magic or Pokemon or whatnot at the time. And so Shlomo, I was looking at like pennies on the dollar I'd be able to offer these guys. After looking up market prices and whatnot. It's sad. I mean, so these guys spent their own hard-earned money on cards and then were forced to turn it all back for pennies on the dollar. And so what I did was I said, all right, look, guys, I understand this is going to be a low ball quote. And I hope you understand that because of the market conditions. And they all did. But I'll tell you what, I wouldn't normally do this because honestly, this is a bad trade. But you're in an emergency. You have to turn it around. You guys have come in and you've been decent. You've been awesome guys. We've talked. And you know what? In their own way, while I haven't seen anyone approach, I didn't say this to them, but while I haven't seen anyone approach them, hey, who knows? That could build some sort of a religious or philosophical bridge to someone who is looking for that influence in their life. Again, I'm not going to presume individual circumstances here. So what I ended up doing, Shlomo, is it was the worst trade you could hope. You know, when you're in a pinch and you got to get rid of everything and you're effectively forced to take the first quote that comes your way, that's a bad deal. And you hope you're never in that situation. And, you know, TJ, that's even why when people come in saying, I got to get rid of these cards, suddenly that raises a red flag because who's going to put themselves willingly into a situation like that? And these guys were. And so I'll tell you what, Shlomo, this is both the worst deal and the best deal because I ended up giving them more money back on their cards than I would have normally because of this situation. You know, I didn't break my own bank and the guys understood it. But let's say I can only give them $100 normally. I gave them $200 and I made sure I let them know that, look, I want to make sure I'm taking care of you. You guys still came down here, and I'm really sorry to hear about your circumstances. I want you to know that you are always welcome in my store. And I'm going to do the best I can for the 3 of you guys. It might have been 4, because they travel in pairs. So I want to do my best, and if you guys split it back out, you know, I'm giving you in cash what I would give you in store credit. And I hope you do well on your mission, and I hope I get to see you again. And unfortunately, I never got to see those guys again because I have to only imagine that the bishop of their local church told them not to come back to my store, despite it only ever being promoting community and all this other stuff. And so there you go, Shlomo. You got a nice 2-for-1 story, simultaneously the worst deal and the best deal. That a person could hope to have in the shop.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been in a situation like that, but I've certainly seen like the worst trade I've ever seen was guy traded off a card that was, I think he traded off like 10 of this card. It was like $2 at the time. 3 days later, it spiked to $50 each.
Oh yes, when that happens, or if it happens to you as a store. And someone prospects you, and they'll come in and buy all your, I don't know, Land of War elves. Because they know something you don't, or they just get lucky, and they sort of play the lotto, and suddenly they bought up all your Land of War elves for 10 cents, and Land of War elves go up to $5 a piece. And you're like, I swore we had a ton of Land of War elves. Oh, wait, there was that one dude. Ah! And now he's sitting on $500.
That's happened several times whilst I've been working. It's like a card will, especially over like when new sets get released, we'll have like our cabinet full of singles or whatnot, and suddenly this card that didn't really have a purpose, but was like $5. Now, there's this brand new combo. Whoa!
Yep. And
suddenly it spikes to $20, and we can't react fast enough. We have to give them the price that's on the card.
And some of your guys are going to be sly about it too, because you're going to get a guy that you know is he's a shark, but he's not a shark, and he's going to come in and he's going to be like, hey, can I get 3 play sets of this card? And you're like, yeah, sure, I'll go get them for you. Hey, you know, so what's going on? Are you building some decks? And you're having conversation, And he's like, yeah, I'm going to be building some decks with them. And meanwhile, you're like, yeah, here, let me just double check the price on them for you, make sure everything's up to date. And you see that in the last day after like after a leak or something, and they've all shot up, and you're like, okay, I got my 3 sets here. Looks like they're $5 a piece. And he's like, but I thought they were just $2 rares. Well, they were. I have them here. You're building decks. It's a fair market price. And then he's gonna mumble, and
Of course.
yeah. So am I gonna just put them back? Yeah, put them back. I don't want them. I'm gonna play with something else. Oh yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, the rule that we have in the store is the listed price is the listed price. So if it changes overnight, we have to be on it. And the store owner is pretty good about that. But if there's no listed price, it's our price. So like I've been involved where cards have gone from $16 to $30 overnight because a new card was released or a new series of cards were released. Like, all right, fine. But then we've had to give them the $16. But I've also been in a situation where a card's gone from $2 overnight, and this guy's put in the order. Oh no, he didn't put in the order. He's like, hey, can you set these aside for me? He didn't ask for price, and that was his mistake. He didn't ask a price. So it was $2 when he called up about it. It was $5 or $6 when he's come to pick it up, and he's just gone, I don't have the money for this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry. And then guys come in like 30 seconds later, and he snapped them up. It's like, oh no. No.
Yeah. All right, well, I'll tell you what, TJ, if you're willing to stick around, let's take a 10-minute break. Use the restroom, refresh ourselves, and we'll come back and let's keep talking shop. You have been bringing up some very excellent points, and I very much appreciate you getting things together and coming on the show here.
Aww.
So, all right, 10 minutes.
All right.
We'll be back.
Yep.